Oh, snaps!
The world is finally waking up to the crap that's baked into and sprayed on kibble dog food. No longer can commercial pet food manufacturers fool us with pretty pictures and false promises. This is the raw dog food truth. The view and opinions expressed on this podcast are not intended to replace medical advice. Before starting any raw diet, do research, ask lots of questions, and consult your vet.
Well, hello, raw feeders. I'm Dee Dee Mercer-Moffat, CEO of Raw Dog Food and Company, where your pet's health is our business and we're friends. Don't let friends feed kibble unless you're fixing kibble, Dr. Judy Jasek. It's on Hump Day, and we're going to talk about this insane new product and narrative that you can fix kibble. How are you? How are you?
Fix kibble. I'm a little bit, I'm kind of a lot disgusted by some businesses in our industry. You're seeing this kibble fixer. Yeah.
You know, as long as we have been doing podcasts, we only get on kibble companies, right? Because kibble companies are toxic chemical soup. Yeah. But we're shocked when one of our peers, one of our, top resources, one of our supplement companies decides that they're going to give an out to the kibble feeders. Now, Let me ask you a question, Dr. Jasek. If a dog has cancer, how do we fix a crappy diet? I mean, how do you do that? What's the realistic way to do it?
You don't fix it, you change it.
There you
feed
go.
them something else. You feed them something that's not toxic. It's like saying, well, I want to eat at Taco Bell, so give me the vitamin supplement that's going to allow me to be healthy and I can eat at Taco Bell. I mean, it's the same thing. Or I want to eat Fruit Loops for 3 meals a day. What's the vitamin supplement that I can take that's going to make that a healthy diet? Synthetic supplements don't make up for poison soup and poor nutrition. And then they're just getting a bunch of synthetics. And what about the toxicity, the glyphosate, the pentobarbital and all these things that pentobarbital is what they use to euthanize animals. They have found that in kibble. They found all these toxic chemicals in there. You aren't going to fix that. You can't fix poison. The only way to fix poison is to stop taking the poison. And if the pet already has cancer, well, I would think that would be a wake-up call. You want to try to fix that, or do you want to change it?
I think, what happens out there in the world is they start listening to what pet parents want, right? Or what the majority of the world wants. And then they make something to fix that in their minds. So you still have pet parents, still have people that ask me this question: what is the best kibble to feed my dog? None. Zero. There is no kibble.
What part of Raw Dog Food and Company do you not understand? We sell raw food, not kibble.
Yeah. I usually try to send those folks over to you, Dr. Jasek. I'm like, well, you might want to talk to Dr. Jasek about that. Yeah. But I don't think they'd get past your introductory videos, which are fabulous, which you send out that says, hey, here's my theory or my ideology. Here's my practice. Here's my experience. Here's what I know. And if that doesn't work for you, then you're going to have to go with somebody else that agrees with that narrative, right?
Right. That'll sell you that kibble fixer.
Yeah. And I see this all the time. People have sick dogs and immediately they go to Science Diet. They go to the prescription diets. They think there's something prescription in there, which you and I have looked and looked and looked. I don't see anything prescription. What? And then, this company comes out with kibble fixer. And so what are they thinking? Are they thinking, well, at least the dog's going to get some nutrition with the kibble fixer? Yeah, I know.
I'm looking at the bottom line. I'm looking at it's pure and simple because there's no health reason for it. And I bet you anything, there's going to be a lot of supposed holistic vets are going to get on board with this too. Oh, well, how easy is that? I don't have to convince, I have to spend, an hour convincing my clients that, fresh food feeding is better, but just sell them the kibble fixer and send them out the door, and everybody's happy. And especially because some of the places promoting it had been holistically oriented. Vets are going to be like, well, great, now we can just get on board, just sell that kibble, sell that kibble fixer. They can make money selling it. And, that everybody's happy, except for the poor pet. And that's what you and I are in it for, is the pet. And that's why we don't change our narrative, because we know what's best for the pet. And if that impacts the bottom line, it impacts the bottom line. But I'm not changing my narrative just for money or any reason. I'm going to keep saying what's best for the pets.
They, and here's the line that people love to say, well, I need to meet people where they are. What the meet people where they are?
You need to slap them upside the head. tell them to pull their heads out of their sphincters is what they need.
Get your head out of your sphincter. And I see this even from some people that I know that tried the raw diet, and they're like, oh, my dog got, deathly ill. I'm like, your dog was probably going through a detox, because I don't know what deathly ill means, right? I see the dog running around. It's not deathly ill, right? And what's in raw that's going to make your dog deathly ill? What? Meat, bones, organ, and fat. What's in it?
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's their natural food. It's what they're supposed to be eating.
To me, Dr. Jasek, this kibble fixer is going down that same path as lab grown meat, the chemicals, food production that they want us to eat. They don't want us eating real food. And, I just saw Epic Times, which I really love, the Epic Times, right? But they did this, mothers across America did this research study, and they looked at fast food joints, right? And there was Starbucks was in there, Wendy's was in there, Subway, Chipotle, Chick-fil-A, and they were looking for these different toxins that were in food. And what they found was Chick-fil-A had this like level of oral contraceptives, or I don't know if it was oral, but it was supposedly animal pharmaceuticals and animal contraceptives. Now, I didn't know that animals got contraceptives. Do they?
Well, not typically. I mean, they get hormones. So like, they give livestock hormones for growth to help enhance growth, but not typically to make them sterile. So I'm not sure what that would be.
Yeah. And last night I was over, so we have a Chick-fil-A that's not, I was picking up food for Rick's birthday. And so there was bonefish, so we're getting sandwiches.
I was going to say, you fed Rick Chick-fil-A for his
Hell,
birthday?
he would die. Rick is not a fast food person. He will not eat fast food.
Like, he must really rank high.
I love you, honey. But no. And the line is usually wrapped around their building, and it wasn't last night. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that word is getting out, But okay, let me say it from two different angles. One angle, I was thinking, the FDA lets anything go into our food. So what do you think they're letting go into dog food as far as kibble, right? And that sort of thing. The other side of me was like, is this again something that's causing fear in the world of real food, right? So that people will be afraid of real food. Now, I don't know. You could say, well, fast food is not real food, right? We definitely could say that. And I love Epic Times, or Epoch, however you want to say it. So I don't know. It gets there's two sides to it, but there's not two sides to the kibble fixing. I will say that.
No.
Unless you just want an excuse.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that a lot from like pretty much any more like natural pet food store, that sell raw, sell, good products. They all will feed kibble for, just like you said, they want to meet people where they're at. But we were at our meeting last week. Tess said, so Tess is down in Arizona now, and she said that she found a pet store down there, and she was talking to the owner, and their goal is to actually eliminate all kibble from the pet store. So I'm
Nice.
like, whoa, right on.
Yeah.
They'll have Tess cheering him on.
Right? She'll be in
On that
there
one.
consulting. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't believe that it's going to go away. It's too big of a business, right? It's too big of an industry. And I was telling you before the podcast, Rodney Habib, right? You and I know Rodney
Mhm.
Habib, and he was a blogger for a long
Mhm.
time. And then Karen Becker picked him up, and then he kind of became a star. Okay. So we know that. But Brian sent me something, and he said that Rodney Habib did a TED Talk. And then this TED Talk got flagged. And they flagged him because this is what TEDx said, that they flagged this talk for falling outside of TEDx's guidelines because it seems to oversimplify the discourse surrounding pet lifespan and raw food diets, which are currently not recommended by the FDA and the AAHA. So they flagged him because he was talking about the 34-year-old dog, right? He was talking about the oldest dog out there and why they could see that this dog lived a long lifespan. One was that he lived out on a farm away from EMFs, right? He didn't get all the toxins pumped into him. He was on real grass, grounding on the earth, eating real food. And this dog lived to 34. So they're going to flag him for misinformation.
And in TEDx, aren't they supposed to be about free speech? And that was kind of like their thing. People could or that was my impression, as always, people can get up there and talk about anything. And these people that have an aspiration to be a speaker can introduce these new and novel concepts. But yeah, evidently they're bought and sold now too.
So here was Dr. Connor Brady, Dr. Connor Brady, who wrote Feeding Dogs, and he's got his own site, and he's over in, I don't know where, is he over in Australia or someplace like that? But Connor Brady's response was this. Apparently, before listening to the biggest voice from the pro-real movement, that's the pro, real raw movement, the guy with the multi-award-winning New York Times best-selling book, the guy with more followers than Beyonce. Yeah, before you listen to what the second most handsome man, Dr. Connor Brady said that Rodney Habib was handsome. Okay, what the second most handsome man in the business has to say, and the studies, you should speak to your very pro-dry vet first. That was a good response.
Yeah.
And so he said, trust the two most pro-industry, most captured organizations out there before you listen to him.
Yeah, right. Because that's exactly what those industries are, captured, bought, and they're just paid off all of their stuff that they put out there about the diets, the vaccines, and everything. It's all programming. It's really all money is what it is. They're just paid off.
And I love this last thing that Connor Brady said. And he said, it seems that those who shout loudest about misinformation are the ones most likely to perpetrate it. For the pets and the people. But Dr. Jasek, I guess there's not enough. You wouldn't even have to shut down. Okay, I'm going to say there's not enough for these other, dry food companies. You wouldn't even have to shut down somebody like Rodney Habib or me or you, because there's enough people that want convenience. There's enough people that think feeding raw is too expensive. There's enough people that want to believe that you can fix kibble. So why don't they just leave us all alone?
Right. Exactly. Because they're worried that more people are going to catch on. Maybe they know their stuff is crap and they're worried that they're going to get found out. But you're right. I mean, there's still at least 90% of the pet industry diets. I mean, I don't know. Do you know what percentage of the pet industry is like raw feeding?
I
I'm
think it's more
guessing
like 1%.
it's pretty small.
It's small. It's small. I think, there are more and more faux raws. Let's call it faux raws, like Ollie or the farmer's dog that is cooked. And even last night, somebody said, well, we feed farmer's dog. And I said, that's cooked. And they were like, no, it's raw. And I'm like, it's cooked.
Yeah, it's cooked. And it's carb heavy too. It's got a lot of starch in it.
A lot of starch. But people are easily fooled, right? And they just keep coming up. These kibble companies keep coming up with all of these, faux raw wrapped kibble, that sort of crap, kibble fixer, that sort of crap,
or like people have to be to some degree moving away from kibble in their minds or questioning it, because these diets like farmer's dog, I don't know how they market that, but it is so popular. I talk to so many people that are feeding farmer's dog, and you can't even really get good information on their website. It drives me crazy because you go in there and you have to like sign up for their program. It's like, I'm always suspicious of companies where you can't just go pop on their website and read every single ingredient that's in their products, but people feed it like crazy. So they'll jump on that. I guess that feels a little safer than raw because it's cooked, or I don't know how they market it, but they're doing a good job.
Have beautiful marketing, and they run commercials constantly. And I'm talking about if you're watching a football game,
that's
big audiences.
So they're on big media. They're on major media.
Major media.
Well, that explains that. I don't watch TV, so I don't plug into that. But I've always told people, though, don't buy foods that you see advertised on the television, because they're putting all their money into marketing and they're selling you a crappy food.
Yeah.
The marketing's expensive.
Well, look at Blue. I mean, I was watching something the other day, and typically we don't watch TV either, but we had company. There were some football games on. That's how I know that these were in the football arena. But they've got picking up the big bag of kibble. And I used to feed Purina Pro Plan, but now I feed Blue because it doesn't have this and this and this. And I'm like, and it's all still crap.
Right. It doesn't have some of those things, but then it's got all this other crap. That's not any better. It's not any better. It's all as toxic. It's all as processed. It's all, 50% carbohydrate. And when you break down the nutrients, that's why there's no good kibble, because when it breaks down in the body, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Toxic soup.
Very bad.
Sounds delicious.
I really love your Substacks that you're doing now, and you're putting out a lot of information. What is that link for the Substack that folks can come over and get information right from you? You sent out the Kibble Can't Be Fixed, and I loved it. I'm going to shoot that out to my email group. But what's your Substack link?
JudyJasekDVM.substack.com.
Okay. JudyJasekDVM.substack.com. Is that right?
You got it. First try. Way to go.
Another thing we were talking about before the podcast was the fleecing of our pet parents at the veterinary offices. And I'm not really sure that we have any advice for our pet parents other than maybe you want to get some pet insurance, because I am astounded at the cost of surgeries or even just diagnostics. A friend had their dog was not eating and was vomiting. Now, a typical blockage may not look like that, right? Typical blockage may look like a dog pacing or whining or the stomach being extended, and none of that was happening. And as a matter of fact, her dog was misdiagnosed to the tune of $2,000 first. They sent him home. Now, thankfully, they called back and they said, hey, we see something, I don't know if it was an MRI, whatever. So she ended up going to another clinic, and so they said, this dog's 14 years old. They said, It's going to be $6,000 for us to, well, first they said on the high side, it's going to be 8,000. On the low side, it could be 4,000 for us to open this dog up and make sure to see what's in there. And we want you to give us 6,000 right now. To which she said, I don't have 6,000 right now. There's no way. It was on the weekend, right? She was like, I don't have 6,000. They literally said, call your family, call your friends, see if you can get $6,000. And she's pretty hardcore, and she pushed back and she said, I don't understand this. Why is it going to be 8,000, maybe 4,000, but you want me to pay 6,000? You know,
Yeah.
what if it's 4,000? How do I get my 2,000 back? You know, whatever.
They aren't going to give her. Yeah. It isn't going to be 4,000. In other words, once they have her 6,000, it will be 6,000 or more. Yeah.
They ended up, she has a card called Companion Care. So it has, you know, it's sort of an insurance type thing. But it's a credit card. And that vet's office that charged her that $2,000, huge fiasco trying to get credited back on that card. Right. And I don't even know how they're going to do that. She said it's a really weird deal. Anyway, my point is this. She said, I felt like I was at a car dealership negotiating with the vets. So on one hand, I do want to say this to our pet parents. Push back, say, I can't pay that much. We're going to have to come to some other terms. And she was able, they acted like they were doing her a great favor. You know, well, we're going to knock it down to $3,000 from that 6,000. They did the surgery. There were a pair of panties inside of him, and she knew it was hers because they were red. Unfortunately, but they did open him up and they got that out. The vet actually called her back and said, I just wanted to know, did you want these panties back?
Oh, jeez.
She was like, no, I don't want the panties back. I said, those are some expensive panties there, girly.
Yeah, no kidding.
But she said, I felt so gross. Now, this is supposed to be a health professional, not a car dealership, right? Somebody that you trust with working with your dog. And she just said, I just felt gross. Felt gross because of this whole money grab thing.
When you know they're not losing money at that $3,000 either. They're still making money. They're covering their overhead, they're paying their staff, and they're making a profit. So that other $3,000 on top of that, the 6,000, you know, that was all gravy for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really don't even know how to advise our pet parents on that, Dr. Jasek, because they were telling her, well, down the street, they're 10,000 for this surgery and they're 10,000, you know, so here you have your dog in distress. You just want your dog back. And they were even trying to push her towards maybe not doing this surgery and just letting the dog die. And she was like, and they had just said from all of his blood work and everything, they were like, wow, this dog is super healthy at 14. And she said, I did not tell them. I wasn't going to tell them he was a raw-fed dog, because then they probably would have said, oh, there's a bone in there or there's something else. You know, it was panties.
Yeah.
So I don't know how can we help our pet parents with these skyrocketing, unbelievable?
I don't know. And you know, sadly, a lot of pets probably are euthanized. I mean, I know for a fact they are, because people can't afford it, and the pet is, you know, is suffering and they can't afford the care. So they just end up having to euthanize them, you know, because of money, which is really sad. You know, I just took out an insurance policy on Max and an accident policy for a puppy. It's like $17 a month. It's through Trupanion and Chewy.com. I have something, the association. And so it's like $17 a month. And so I took that out in case he does swallow a rock or get an obstruction or something like that. But then then part of me is like, but the idea is they're playing on that insurance thing though, too. I mean, in human medicine, the reason prices are many times what they are in veterinary medicine is because of insurance, because people can't pay out of pocket. They have to buy insurance. It's like this insurance racket. And I don't want to see veterinary medicine turn into that either. But then if it's either that or people have to put their pets down because they can't afford a $10,000 surgery, I mean, I'd get the insurance, so that you didn't risk losing your pet. But then that's a racket too. We just, need to get back down to just a cash profession. It's like we were saying before, you just need some underground vets that would start. We need the same thing in human medicine, start a cash, surgery center, and they could charge way less than these specialty clinics are, and they'd have tons of business. And if they didn't require vaccines, they could do really, really, really well. It'd be lucrative. It'd be a win-win for everybody, but you just need somebody willing to do that. And why would these vets want to do that when they can make 10 grand on a surgery? And you know what? If 30% of their clients just euthanize their pets because they can't afford it, well, they're making 10 grand on the surgeries they do. So they're still making money. It's really pathetic. It's really pathetic. It's not at all a health industry. It's just a money-making industry.
So on that insurance that you just bought for Max, will it cover, what will it not cover? Let me ask you that.
It's no wellness. It's accident or illness only. So if he breaks a leg or, has an obstruction, something like that, it's not going to cover like any kind of routine care, wellness care, but I don't care. I mean, I take care of all that stuff. It's just
Right.
if he needs a major surgery or something, like in most illnesses, even, I can take care of that. It's just if it's something surgical. And then it covers, I think it was 80% or something. So, you'd still have to pay something, but it's better, you can plan on putting some money aside or whatever. And maybe that's what, pet parents need to do if you don't go down the road of the insurance, which I guess is another thing, is you just have money set aside. You do your own insurance, really. You just start your own savings plan. Every month you put a little bit on the side in a separate account and vow not to spend it. And then if there's a, health emergency for your pet. So probably that would be the thing people need to do, is start planning ahead. I mean, my husband and I do that because we just refuse to pay these astronomically high medical insurance rates. So we have a high deductible catastrophic plan.
Right.
So whatever that out-of-pocket amount is, we make sure we can pay that out-of-pocket, maximum every year in the deductible. So it's a substantial amount of money, but we just refuse to pay these high insurance premiums. It's just like, you get in a car accident and you're in the hospital and you can't afford, it's $100,000 bill or something, you got something to, help you with. So that would probably be the thing people need to do, because this stuff does happen. I think sometimes people they want to go get the cute puppy and everything's great until puppy gets sick, and they just don't think about how much this care costs. So I would say, plan ahead, be able to have some way of paying 10 grand if your puppy gets, sick, or adult dog, either way. But for puppies, the insurance is really cheap because there's no pre-existing conditions or anything. But, make sure you've got some money set aside, or you got insurance or something, or you've got some friends and family that'll pay for it for you. I don't know how that works, but.
Right. But there has to be, maybe there's not, because it's difficult, but there has to be vets that will work with you, right? They all can't be captured. I think a lot of them are, but all of them can't be. We had talked about before Brian, who was trying to just get a wellness check basically on his dog because the dog is a therapy dog, right? Mm-hmm. And the dog, through the therapy organization, is not required to do a rabies shot. They can do titers and that sort of thing. And remember, we talked about where they wouldn't even touch his dog because it was raw fed. Right? So basically what he did He got in the car and he drove to 5 different vets. And they would not sign off on it because he was a raw fed dog. And Brian said, he said, you do know that Kibble, what he said was that the vets would not come out and talk to him. They sent their vet techs out. And that Brian said, I wasn't going to beat up the vet tech, but I did say, you do know that the recalls on Kibble outpace any raw diet because of bacteria. And he, said some other things, to them. But anyway, he finally, one of our customers is a vet, and they were like, sure, we'll sign off on that. And he got it signed off on because she's a raw feeding, vet. And he didn't even realize. He was like, I got home and I thought, why didn't I think of that? She's one of our, and she owns the clinic. So she owns that clinic. So what you're going to need to find, I think, out there are raw feeding vets. And hopefully they own the clinic.
Yeah. Then the smaller clinics. I mean, depending on your needs, like if you need surgery, well, it needs to be somebody that can do surgery. I think that's in the Denver area. You got the big specialty clinics, and they have a monopoly, and a lot of the general vets just don't do those surgeries anymore. They just refer them out because they're, they don't. And it, in a way it makes sense. Those are board certified surgeons, so they have more surgical expertise and all that. But if you can find a vet that, like you said, that owns the clinic, they make their own, they're not, because that's, I don't know what the percentage is, but I bet it's 50% or more of clinics now are corporate. They're owned, they're VCA or Blue Pearl or whatever these corporations are. Those decisions aren't even made inside their clinic. They're made in the corporate offices,
Right.
what they can do and what they can't do, and even their pricing. And I bet those corporate executives are looking at, well, look what they get on the human side for this. We need to be charging more because we could make more money. But if you get, and especially I think veterinarians more in my generation that knows that these prices are ridiculous, and they have their own clinic, and if they happen to have the skills and that could do, what you need, but then, you could do that. But it's hard to find a place sometimes, or to know, are they qualified to do something like a specialized surgery. But for general care, it would be so easy. I mean, if I had it in me to do a practice that did all this stuff, I mean, it would be an overnight success. But
right, we've talked about it.
We've talked about it.
We've talked about doing it. But then
some young whippersnappers to do it.
Yeah, I remember when Neely and I went to that clinic and did a presentation years ago. And they asked us actually to come and do a presentation, and we did. And I remember this was the funniest thing, because here you're standing up there, and there were there was actually one vet, I'll never forget this, who would not come in. She was adamantly against raw feeding. She ended up leaving the clinic because because the owner of the clinic decided that they were going to feed raw. One of our customers actually worked there. And so I think that got them thinking, because she talked about, how well her dog was doing. And then this other vet asked us to come in, a female vet that owned the clinic, and we did the presentation. But I just remember it was so weird because you had these faces looking at us like we were the enemy. I'll never forget that. And yet we were looking at this vet's dog that she was holding while we were doing the presentation. And just, you could see that this dog was not in good shape, right? Was not in good shape at all. And so she decided to switch over to raw, and she did. And she decided to start buying and moving her customers in that direction. But I'll never forget, they lost a vet from that. This one female
Wow.
left and said, I'm not going to work here if you're going to promote raw. And she left.
Wow.
But she wouldn't even listen. She wouldn't even come into the presentation. I mean, it was like veins were going to pop out of her neck. She was so mad.
It was like, well, then she's better off moving on, I guess. And she's only had plenty of clinics to go to that promote feeding kibble. But that, that's what gets me. It's like, you can't open your mind enough to just listen. Maybe you don't agree with it, but at least listen. How do you know it's so bad if you don't know anything about it? People just, keep the narrative up, keep the misinformation going. I mean, when people like you and I, like, I don't worry about misinformation. I speak the truth. I speak what I know and what's true for me and what I have learned. I mean, making up lies is it's exhausting, and you got to keep track of what you said to who and what story you told to which person. Like, it's so much easier just tell the truth, I think.
Well, even if let's say you're not quote unquote lying, but you say, as most of these vets say, well, we've had clients that have come in here that have had, salmonella, from raw food. But when you come back and you ask the question, tell me, what type of salmonella was it? Because there are many. Tell me what the level was. What is the benchmark for an overgrowth of salmonella or too much salmonella? Or what was the diet? Were they adding kibble? I mean, all of these questions that you and I would ask to try to get to the bottom of a statement that why wouldn't you want to? They will not respond. They will not respond. And pet parents won't ask those questions. And we'll give you those questions to ask. We're not trying to be, mean and start a fight.
They're not even testing. They're not, all this they're doing, raw food must be salmonella. Because I'll ask, when pet parents say that, they went into the vet and they got the, salmonella species, like what, or spiel. So what, did they test your pet? Did they test the stool? Did they, I don't know. That's just what they told me. It's right here written. Yeah, but how did they come up with that? Like, because they're not doing any testing there, because there is no test for that. It's just propaganda, but it's just one of those things. Enough people say it, it becomes true. Just like the dogs need grain to have a healthy heart. That's going to be a narrative for decades, because even though that's been completely disproven, it had enough time to take hold, which was all the intent. It had enough years out there to take hold, especially in the cardiology community. And now they're going to keep saying that dogs need grain for a healthy heart, even though it's been completely disproven. They don't spread that information. They don't want you to know that.
There are just some beliefs that are so strong that you're never going to break them. Right. So for instance, gosh, I've been talking all this time and I haven't had my microphone turned around. I'm sure that's a much better sound. But what I was going to say was, one of my friends he knows the narrative out there about COVID. He knows the narrative, about the test, and he knows the facts, right? The studies that have come out, and they've said, look, the PCR test is not a diagnosing tool, right? It is, you want to find something, go find it, and it will find whatever you're looking for. He felt like he had a cold the other day, so he went and did a test to see if he had COVID. I was like, how in this day and age, at this time, after we just came through what we came through, do you still believe that those tests are valid? And why is it, if you have a cold, that's a bad thing?
Right. Everybody gets colds.
And he said, well, I have a fever. And I said, good. If you have all of that junk that is clogged up, how else is it going to heat it up and make it to where you can sneeze it out, cough it out, chill it out, poop it out, you know.
Got to melt the jello, as Dr.
Melt-
Cowan says.
I'm just
Jello.
like, but I'm astounded. I'm astounded because this is an incredibly smart person.
Mhm.
So it's not that people are dumb, but there is some sort of belief in there that they, or fear. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It baffled me too. I mean, through all of COVID, because all the people that come to me for holistic care for their pets are running out, getting in front of the line for their COVID jab. I'm like, really? That's and coming, like bragging, well, I'm fully vaccinated, like, good. Keep my distance,
Right.
keep your spike proteins or whatever you're shedding on your side of the room, like, are you kidding me? And those were always the people that were like the last to stop wearing masks and stuff too. And why? Because of fear. That's what I think. I mean, I think fear is the biggest. Well, what if there's this itty bitty little chance that this stuff is true? And it's like, I don't know, I guess I just listened to enough of how messed up the world is that I knew this was a bogus narrative, very, very, very early on. And I know the vaccines, but there's no way I would have ever taken an experimental vaccine. Are you kidding me? But people lined up for it, or they didn't want to be inconvenienced. Well, I want to travel, or I want to go to the concert, or I want to go to my favorite restaurant. Like that's worth your life, really? Like,
Or some chronic illness that you're going to fight for the rest of your life.
yeah,
Some sort of, immune problem. And for me and for you, I think it's so easy to see when we have this explosion of cancer in dogs, right? These turbo cancers. That's a good, word that's coming out right now.
happening in pets. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think the correlation is there? And I don't understand why we don't stop and say, what's the cause? Because it doesn't just happen. And somehow this narrative has gotten out there that says, well, it just happens.
Right. It's genetics, just bad genetics.
It doesn't just happen.
But if that were the case, so if it was just genetics, which is what has been, the narrative on the human side too, then why is it increasing? Do the genetics just keep getting worse and worse? I mean, you don't get, like in just the last few years, like the last 3 years or so, the rates of cancer, they were going up, but that's astronomical in these two turbo cancers and these really, I'm seeing probably 2 out of 3 new cancer patients I see are lymphoma, and all like really bizarre, all over the map, different presentations. I'm not even sure it's being diagnosed correctly. I think there's more going on. I think it's all toxicity, but it's definitely changing. Genetics isn't changing that fast. You don't change the gene pool in our animals or in people in 3 years. Are you kidding me? Like it's poison. And when I'm seeing younger and younger pets, I had one dog at 10 months of age diagnosed with an oral, I think it was a melanoma, it was a malignancy in the mouth. That's gotta be vaccines, right? Because what else is done? Yeah, diet, but even a really poor diet, even if like old Roy, like one of the worst kibbles out there, not that there's any good kibble, but like bottom of the run, those dogs would probably live to be at least 5 or 6 years old before they'd get cancer. It's not going to take them at 10 months. So what else are they getting? Well, they get all these vaccines. And I'll tell you, I had another complaint, a Colorado board, and both of these last complaints that were filed against me, and they've been anonymous. I know one was from a veterinarian, not from clients. One was from a practice owner, and I don't know who this last one was, maybe an animal control officer, because it has to do with a court case. But they're both around the idea that my exempting clients from rabies, or the way I talk to clients about rabies and vaccines is inappropriate. Yet they're killing our pets. The profession is murdering our pets. And when I tell people, hey, you need to take a step back, you need to ask what's in these things, and I try to educate them and they go into a clinic and push back, then I get called out, to the board. I mean, that's messed up. Like, what are people supposed to do? Like they're really backed in a corner with the vaccines, because it's getting harder and harder to find clinics that will, see them without all of these vaccines that I know without a doubt are killing their pets and causing all this chronic illness. Yet it's getting harder and harder for people to work around them. I mean, I have a little more of an advantage because I can treat a lot of things. I have medical knowledge, but what does the average person do? They just are kind of stuck having to get the shots if they want to get their pets in to get care.
Yeah, but look at this, Dr. Jasek. If going into vet school, you have to have a rabies shot, right? You have to have a rabies shot. I would never be a vet for that one reason right there. I don't think I could pass any of the the chemistry or the biology. Probably couldn't.
Well, there's
pass
that,
anyway.
but I'll just stop at the rabies shot.
I can't even say the words, but yeah, I wouldn't do it. But if you are somebody that's had that yourself, super easy for you to think, well, nothing happened to me. Why wouldn't we do it for the pets? And yet I back up and I say, why did they start that? I mean, did we ever have a case, a true case, where someone was bitten in veterinary school by a dog, and then they started foaming at the mouth like the Day of the Dead or whatever it is, those shows that we watch? Was there ever a case like that? Do you know of a case like that?
I don't know. And I've been practicing for 35 years. And I have never run into an actual case of rabies in a person or in a dog. You can read they publish articles about the incidence in rabies and show you the maps with all little dots where it's showing up, but they don't have information about how is that being tested. Is it some bogus PCR test? We learned this in COVID that these tests, they can test for pretty much anything that you want them to test for. Now, traditionally in rabies, you had to kill the animal and check the brain. That was the only way to check for the rabies virus. But who knows what they're even looking for after, now coming in, the fact that do viruses even exist is coming into question. Who knows? And all these other diseases and pandemics and all this stuff, like polio has been linked to DDT, and so many of these other conditions have been linked to some toxin. Boy, do I wish we could get down to where did this start and what was going on then. And I bet we'd identify the toxin. But then it's another one of those things. It's this fear propaganda. And, we got to have these vaccines because it's this deadly disease. And I think they've really been able to work this up on rabies because people can get it. So it's even more scary. It's bad enough people worry about their dogs getting something from another dog, but people don't get parvo or distemper, but people can supposedly, get rabies. So that's the whole play now for the rabies vaccines in the vet clinics is, well, what if your dog, bites one of our staff and it's got rabies? Like, well, I think it would be pretty obvious if it had rabies. Like, don't you know what the symptoms are? You can't, there's the asymptomatic, whatever.
There it is. Asymptomatic.
Yeah.
You guys are all walking around out there looking beautiful, healthy, and fine, but there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, you're shedding stuff.
Don't you get too comfortable with your bad self.
I bet you most of the 80% of the population wouldn't even know what that word meant before COVID. Now it's a thing. Oh, just like those COVID anti-vaxxers that are walking around killing all the rest of us.
You know what I do when I'm out in the store? I sneeze as loud as I can.
Cough right on the produce.
Well, I will cover my mouth, but it's just so fun to do that. It's like sneeze as loud as you can. Oh my God. It's
Are
like,
people
come
are
on.
people starting to wear masks again where you are?
I see them. And I don't even look at people that have masks on because I'm like, it's so unhuman to me.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I just, I don't get it. I don't get it. And, you know, I, I think, again, it doesn't matter how much information you want to give the folks, how much, proof, how much they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to do what they're going to do. And
Totally.
And I want to say, to all these folks who still listen to the media, who pushed that narrative, who said we should, excommunicate all of those that don't get vaccinated. We should do this to them. Man, you still want to listen to those folks that pushed you in that direction?
Mhm.
I haven't heard lately anything about what Robert Kennedy Jr. said when he said pet parents are questioning the rabies for their pets.
Oh, I didn't know he brought that up.
He did. Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yep, that came out from that group, Children's Health Defense. And so I need to go back in there and see. Are you still listening to Polly and Mary?
I do some. I mean, there's just so much stuff
There's so many things
to
to listen to.
to
Yeah.
listen to. It's hard to keep up, and so I try to kind of got to pick and choose. Like I see what they're talking about, and I have to pick and choose just in the interest of time. But I am listening to them. But I think to get a bigger platform, at least talking about this, I think would be awesome. Because if enough people push back, because a clinic isn't going to care if one or two kooky clients come in there and start pushing back on a rabies. But if 30% of their clientele went in there and said, no, what if a whole bunch of people, went to their county and said, we need to change these laws? That's really what needs to happen, because that's what the vets are playing on is, well, it's the law. And it's usually on the county level. I think in some places it might be city, but mostly it's county. And go in there and say, look, we need to change these laws. These, vaccines are, killing our pets. But I think it's got to be a good representation of people, because they aren't going to listen to one or two like you or me. They're like, they'll die soon. Just leave them alone. Just let them live out their time. They'll wear out. They're getting old,
Well, I still believe, though, that even if we could somehow curb those rabies vaccination, they would come up with some type of toxin to push out there to make it look like that we were wrong, that these dogs have rabies and stuff like that. That's why we need more people. You know what I'm saying? Anytime that people start catching on, we're like, well, how do we fool them back into, and you could say we're conspiracy theorists, but here's what we are. We are passionate about pet health. And so take it or leave it. Doesn't make us any difference, right? There comes a point, Dr. Jasek, where we do what we do. And there was a time, and I've said this on the podcast before, when it really upset me that I wasn't believed, right? There was a time. And now I'm just like, I'm just going to talk to the people that are open to it. I can't, I don't want to do it anymore to try to convince somebody. I don't try to convince them, people ask me all the time, well, is this complete and balanced? And, are you AAFCO approved? And they ask me all these, can I add kibble? I don't go into my big long spiels anymore. It's just like, no. And here, read this. If you really want to know, you really want to have the healthiest pet, you really want your pet with you as long as possible, then it's on you to get educated. There's a reason that certain people that do certain things have really healthy dogs.
Right. It's not by accident.
Right. And people ask, like my friend who went in with the dog who ate the panties. They were like, this dog is incredibly healthy, bright, healthy, blood work looks good, skin looks great, everything's great, except he just has some panties in it. And and she did not tell them until the end. Okay. Because they made the dog stay in the clinic, and then they wanted to feed him to see if, before they let him out. And at that moment, she said, don't feed him kibble. He's not a kibble fed dog. He's a raw fed dog. And she said, I bet they were all just like, dang it. We told her that that dog was super healthy. She fooled us.
Right. I tell people that too. Just don't say it up front. Tell them later. Let them do the testing. And I say, because they might not have even worked your dog up. They might have just said, oh, your dog's sick because it's eating that raw food.
Right.
And sent it home. Well, I can't believe the first vet sent the dog home.
Right.
Like, that's crazy. I had a client tell, it was a new client, and this was another dog of hers. She was just sharing the story, but then this was I think it was a dog fight. The dog had been attacked in a fight. She rushed it into the vet, and they checked it over and said, oh, we think your dog's fine. So, just sent it home. Well, she got home and she's like, my dog wasn't fine. She said it was going into shock, and she ran to the emergency clinic, and the emergency clinic said, we can't believe they sent this dog home. It didn't put it on fluids and treat it for shock. And the dog ended up dying. Just,
what?
Just sent it. I mean, I hear stuff like this. I'm like, are they even thinking? They'd learn anything in vet school? Or maybe this wasn't part of the programming. It's like when you take your car into the shop, because all the cars are computerized.
Yep.
And you can know there's something wrong with your car. And if it doesn't show up on their computerized screen, sorry, your car was making this noise. Sorry, computer says it's fine. It's almost like it's that. If it's they're so zombified and so programmed, and if there's not something that fits in with their program, the dog must be fine.
We just had that happen to one of our cars. Took it in, they totally repaired something that wasn't broken and sent it back, and we were like, hang on a second.
Yeah,
I sent it in for this. Oh, you sent it in for that? Yeah, it says right here.
Yeah.
Head up sphincter.
Yep.
Head up sphincter.
We had one time several years ago, we were getting ready to go on a camping trip, and Chris, my husband, is like, his car was making a noise. So there's something not right. And he took it into the dealership, and they had it all checked out. And he's like, I know there's something not right. And they're like, oh, it's road noise. And he's like, come on, I've been driving for
50
30
years.
years. I think I know the difference. They told him, oh, it must be the tires. So he got new tires. Yeah. We went camping as we were in Colorado, and we were going to Arizona, to Sedona, and we drove all the way across New Mexico, and this noise got worse and worse and worse and worse. And we got to the campground, unloaded the camper, and then went to the dealership up in Flagstaff, and they said their axle was about ready to break, and you guys are lucky you didn't get killed, because if it broke when you're pulling that camper, you guys would have been dead.
Oh
yeah. And we knew there was something. But they can't use their brains and think, or even take it out on the road and listen for the noise. Nope, doesn't show up on the computer. And I think that's what's happening in medicine. That's why things have to be named. They have to, because they can't treat a pet unless you have a diagnosis. It has to have a name, and it could be completely bogus. I just did a little Substack recording on IBS and IBD, because that's nice. It's a diagnosis that I hear so commonly that means absolutely nothing. It means the gut's inflamed. Well, does your pet having chronic diarrhea? Yes. Well, we know the gut's inflamed. It tells us nothing. It doesn't tell us anything about the cause, but as long as they can name it, then they can treat it. And they can put the pet, they can justify a prescription like steroids or something, because now they have a name for it. And then people are happy because my pet has such and such. It's not like my pet has diarrhea, but nobody knows why. They don't look at the underlying cause. But I think that's where medicine is is becoming is just a big algorithm. And that's all vets and probably human doctors too are being trained is just a computer could probably what the plan is. There'll be robots soon, just doing
AI,
diagnostics. Yeah.
it's all going to be AI. So you're not going to be able to think really with AI, right? It's just got to be sort of a box. So again, that's why we do these podcasts. We hope that the information will give you the courage to ask the questions, will give you the confidence to say, no, I believe that there is something wrong with my pet, right? Or give you the knowledge that says IBS, IBD, like you said in your Substack, which you guys need to get over and get signed up for that. It's just that the gut's inflamed. And so we need to start thinking like that. Well, what causes the gut to be inflamed? How do we keep the gut from being inflamed? Do we just need a pill? No, because it's sort of like the kibble fixer that we started out this podcast with. You are still going to have sloppy poops. You're still going to have chemical soup. You're still going to have poisons and toxins and high carbs going into your dog, no matter how much good stuff you put on top of it. So what are you really fixing? What are you fixing?
Your guilt. It's all it's doing. It's fixing pet parents' guilt. And for whatever, $29.99 or whatever, I have no idea what they're selling it for, but buy this bag for whatever amount of money and you don't have to feel guilty about feeding. And to me, like a product like this, it's like you're acknowledging it's broken. Like you're acknowledging it's bad by the fact that you're doing this product. So why are we, Purina came out with it. I'd say, well, that's par for the course. But the company that came out with this, I had a lot of respect for because I thought they were one of the best supplement companies out there. Well, no longer. And I don't know who they're, teamed up with or who's paying them off or something, or who they got in, who invested in them or whatever. I know this happens. These companies, it's expensive out there and running a business is tough, and you get a big investor that comes in and wants to help, pad the finances a little bit. Great. But then they want certain things because they're in bed with other companies and you got to promote their stuff. And when things like this happen that just really don't make any sense, it's follow the money, right? It comes down to the bottom line.
Right after that came out, and I don't know if you saw this, but they sent out a survey of what you thought about it. And
I guess I didn't see the survey.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Did you fill it out?
I haven't, but you know what I've been doing, looking around for something different. And yeah, it's man, yeah, it's hard. But you guys, you still have Dr. Judy Jasek. You've got her Substack. You've got the Raw Dog Food Truth podcast. We love your questions. Send your questions in. You can send them over to info@rawdogfoodandco or go in the chat. You can Zoom with Dr. Jasek. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. She can Zoom with you and help you. Diagnosis, advice, food, whatever you need, right? You can work with Dr. Jasek. And so you want to get over to ahavet.com. Remember, we have the cancer webinar. It's a 3-series. And this isn't just for pet parents that have a cancer diagnosis. This is if you want to get your pet on the right track, right? Mm-hmm. How do I ensure that I don't have to use that pet insurance for some sort of really chronic disease? Or
really from a holistic perspective, treating cancer and preventing cancer is the same. Just if you're treating it, you're a lot further behind the ball. So let's prevent it from happening in the first place.
Right. So you can find that on my website. There's part 1 through 3. They're there for you to purchase and download now. And you can find those in the educational webinar arena or in the supplement section. They're right at the top. So you will find that there. So get over there and get those cancer webinars and listen to them. They're fabulous. They're great. And we'll be coming out with some more, won't we, Dr. Jasek?
Yes, we will.
She's like, yes,
We're
we
gonna do one
will.
on skin. Skin. Yeah, we're gonna do skin.
Itchy pets, because God knows there's an epidemic. And you could probably guess what's causing it.
Yeah. The kibble fixer.
Yeah, the kibble fixer. I'm gonna. Okay, we'll talk more about that. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to the Raw Dog Food Truth. Get over to Raw Dog Food and Company. Get your dog on a species appropriate diet, because here at Raw Dog Food and Company, your pet's health is our business. And what, Dr. Jasek?
And friends, don't let friends feed kibble or fix the kibble.
There you go. We got to get new t-shirts. Friends, don't let friends fix kibble.
That's right.
All right. We'll see you soon, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.